We have just adopted the Industrial Action Plan for the automotive sector. It is a plan to keep Europe's car makers, suppliers, and related service actors innovative, competitive, and firmly anchored in Europe. The industry contributes today 7% of the EU GDP and employs around 14 million people directly or indirectly. But it is not just about numbers. For Europeans, the automotive industry is part of our history and, of course, a source of pride. But today, the automotive industry is under threat. Supply chain risks, energy costs, staff shortages, protectionism, and over-reliance on imported supplies are putting immense pressure on the industry. Our companies are falling behind on key strategic technologies like batteries, software, and autonomous driving. Before putting pen to paper for this action plan, I spoke extensively with the automotive industry. I discussed with manufacturers, suppliers, and many more. I listened to their concerns, their ideas, their proposals. I formed working relationships that I intend to continue. So today, ladies and gentlemen, is only the beginning, but it is an important beginning. Our action plan sets out flagship initiatives in 5 game-changing areas. First, innovation and digitalization. Second, clean mobility. Third, competitiveness and supply chain resilience. 4, skills. And 5, the level playing field. As we have the finance to turn ambition into reality, up to 50 billion euro under Invest EU for clean tech and clean mobility, 1.8 billion euro from the Innovation Fund for battery manufacturing, 1 billion euro for Horizon Europe for connected and autonomous vehicles and batteries, 570 million euros under the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Facility for charging points with a focus on trucks, funding for skills development, including 90 million euros from Erasmus Plus for the workforce training, and of course additional funding for SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, the first game changer in this action plan is innovation and digitalization. This is not just a priority for us, but the heart of everything we do for the future of the European automotive industry. We need, indeed, more R&D and innovation. We need to get the results to the market, and we have to regain our leadership in AI-powered, connected and automated vehicles, including in-car experience. And then legislation must keep up. No country today has a complete rule book for autonomous vehicle use, but China and the US are ahead of us with on-road testing and commercial operations. So now is the time to draw on one of the EU's biggest strengths, our single market. We will gradually harmonize EU legislation, and already in 2025, we will do what needs to be done so that all cars have automated parking systems. Large-scale, cross-border test beds will help us understand the traffic implications. And a European connected and autonomous vehicle alliance will target in cutting-edge software, in-vehicle computing, and AI solutions. Now, let me move to the second part, clean mobility. Europe's emission standards for new cars and vans provide long-term certainty for investors. So they remain. But we must also be pragmatic. So instead of annual compliance, companies will exceptionally get 3 years, 2025, 2026, 2027, combined to comply to the targets. So, for example, if a company underperforms in 2025, it has 2 more years in which to compensate, which it must do by overachieving. Similarly, if a company overachieves in 2025, it is under less pressure in 2026 and 2027. And I want to announce to you today that since we do not have any time to lose, the review of the CO2 emission standard legislation will take place in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2025 instead of 2026. Electric vehicles, you know it, already account for 15% of the EU sales. To grow that, we need to boost demand. So we will start by legislating on corporate fleets, which currently account for around 60% of all new EU car registrations. Their mileage is higher, and they enter the second-hand market faster than private vehicles, making them an important market segment. While we work on the legislation, we can already pass on what is working in other countries, and we have done so in the communication that is published today on corporate fleets. Member States could already consider giving tax benefits to zero-emission vehicles, setting rules for taxis and car-sharing services based on their emissions. Or they could encourage, even today, rental companies, especially those used by tourists for short trips, to use zero-emission cars. We are also encouraging social leasing schemes for lower-income citizens and faster installation of charging points and their connection to electricity grids, because both are crucial. We cannot ask for consumers to trust CO2 zero-emission vehicles if we don't provide to them the infrastructure. Mobility is a right, no matter where you live and what your income is. And I want to underline that. Nobody must be left behind in the transition to cleaner vehicles. And we will make sure that this will become a reality. Now, for charging points, alongside the 570 million euro for rollout this year and the next, we will shortly publish recommendations on shortening the grid connection waiting time. And we are looking into whether it should become mandatory for Member States. Now, to consider the entire process as a top priority so that permits can be approved faster. And indeed, permits need to be approved faster in all Member States. Now, let me move to the third pillar, competitiveness and supply chain resilience. And let me focus mainly on batteries, which account for 30 to 40% of a typical electric car's value. And they are a key driver of jobs and economic competition as well. Now, to compete, Europe needs its own supply. That means producing them ourselves. And alongside finance, we are considering European content requirements for batteries and components that are sold here. The Clean Industrial Deal, presented by the Commission last week, also announced a new critical raw materials centre. So from 2026, it will offer automotive players access to lower cost materials. Ladies and gentlemen, we must also never forget the social dimension. And my heart goes out to everyone who is worried about their job during this transition. Changes to global demand and production, economic shocks, geopolitical changes that we are witnessing these past few weeks, and the uncertainties have led to automotive plant closures. At the same time, our workforce is aging. We need to train and attract workers with the skills of a digital future. So, a European Fair Transition Observatory will follow employment trends across the automotive value chain. It will predict threats and plan targeted support in advance. So, before having the problem. And we will update the European Globalization Adjustment Fund for displaced workers as well. It already supports workers laid off due to restructuring of the industry. Now, in the future, we want to also support companies restructuring to reduce the risks of layoffs. Finally, let me conclude with the fifth pillar, the international business environment. For a level playing field, for market access and access to critical material, we will continue to pursue the free agreements and the international partnerships. These actions, together with many others that are outlined in the action plan, will ensure that the next generation of vehicles is not just made in Europe, but innovated in Europe, powered by European technology, and built on European values. We will de-risk value chains and build new capacities. We will balance long-term certainty with realism. And we will step up political, economic, and regulatory support. Ladies and gentlemen, taking the right decisions now, seizing the opportunities, and tackling the challenges ahead will create a future for Europe's automotive industry that is as impressive as its past. And as I said earlier, this is only the beginning. We will continue to work together with all stakeholders with a more resilient, more competitive, more sustainable, with a truly European automotive industry. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Commissioner.